Welcome to The Work of Warriors, a podcast dedicated to bringing mental wellness to the entertainment industry. I'm your host, Kim Rapach. This podcast is dedicated to the artists we've lost to mental health, addiction, and suicide, and to those who are still suffering in silence. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today's guest, Ien Chi, is the former head creative of Jubilee, leading the channel during its golden years towards 5 million plus subscribers and 1 billion plus views through crafting YouTube's most popular shows like Middle Ground and Spectrum. He's also the former chief creative of Mindset at Dive Studios. He has written, directed, edited for brands like Apple and Nike and many more. A lifelong spiritual seeker, he is passionate about combining the search for truth while crafting substantial art and motion picture experiences. Ien is the founder and executive producer of Nourish, a creative brand who, in an age where noise and superficiality dominate, their mission is to nurture the flourishing of the human soul through the art of heartfelt storytelling. They partner with organizations and brands who reject the superficial and amplify the meaningful, resonating with the deep-seated human hunger for connection, understanding, and truth. Welcome, Ien Chi.
Hey, Kim.
Hi, Ien.
How are you?
I'm good. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. It's good.
Well, welcome to the Work of Warriors. Thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, we touched base last time briefly, and I was like, oh, this is like speaks right to my soul, and I feel like I don't know, I've spoken about it in the past, but it's just something I don't get tired of speaking about at all. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know what it is, but there's a quote, and I'm going to botch it, but something about if you just be yourself, your people will find you, right? And you and I had a conversation, first time meeting over Zoom, and it was just so easy and so natural, and we're in alignment on so many things and our values,
Yeah,
And so
true.
I'm just like, there it is. And like you, I just don't get tired of having these conversations about mental wellness and, the journey and the industry. And in fact, I had something come up right before our call, and I was like, I mean, I know I could cancel. I know Ien would understand, but I'm like, it's these conversations that fill my cup. I need to have this
Yeah.
conversation, and it's,
Yes.
weighing, I'm no longer in the business of hustle and grind and push through, and get it done. But it's like these conversations, that's not what that is for me. These conversations
Yeah.
they're soul filling for me. So I'm so glad that you're here.
So after I burned out, which I'm sure we'll go into much more, I made this company, and the name of it is Nourish, because I really wanted to create something, as you say, that is like soul filling, which the entire world is not designed to be soul filling, it seems,
Yeah.
So it's got to be intentional. It's got to be intentional to feed one's soul and try to take step by step, walking that path, which at first seems lonely, but you come across people, who are walking that path as you start walking that path more and more, which is why we
Yeah.
connected too. So yeah.
Yeah. You just, the world, your little tiny lonely community gets bigger and bigger. And
Yes.
I think for people who are focused on mental wellness, and especially those who are creative, who are artists, it just opens up so much more. It's not like you just have more people around you. It's like you have more meaning around you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You use the word intentional. That is probably my favorite word, actually,
Oh, wow.
because you can address anything if you're intentional, right?
Yeah.
You can address your boundaries, your communication, you can enhance your relationships, your physical fit, everything required. If you're going to be successful, it requires you to be intentional, not
Yeah.
motivated, not great at, at anything. If you're intentional, you can figure it out and make things better.
Yes. Yes, I think so. And a lot of the burnout for me came from this space of trying to grab at things because I didn't feel like I had everything I needed within myself, which has a lot to do with feeling this lack and void inside. But intention, I love that word so much too, because it's about bringing to life what is already within you, whether it's this idea or a lifestyle, and then what's already within you, you're just then creating it outside of yourself. It comes from inside and goes outward, and it's not something that's outside that you try to grab to take in. It's funny, I was literally, before we met, I was writing this post on LinkedIn where I was sharing my reflection on the difference between grabbing and expressing, which are two
Yeah.
different types of creation. And for so much of my previous life, it came from that grabbing mentality of, oh, this is a great opportunity, it's going to take me farther in my career. Or, oh, I'm, got to make something like this so it gets those views. Or, just growing for the sake of growth. Whereas expressing is having such a clear idea of what it is I want. And it doesn't really matter if it does super well or doesn't do well. I'm going to find a way to monetize this thing that I love, no matter what it takes. And I'm going to take, I'm going to take these ideas in my brain and find a way to make it happen and express it in the world outside of myself, because it's something I wish I existed in the world that's not quite there yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
said my previous self.
Yes.
And I know that I had the pleasure of seeing your TED Talk. John
Mm.
Bregel introduced us to each other, and he had sent your TED Talk to me. And of course, I loved it and immediately reached out. But do you want to say a little bit about what your experience, professionally has been in
Yeah.
the industry and how that kind of led you to where you are today? I would love to hear. We
Yes.
talked in generalities when we first met, but I would love to hear more
Mm.
of the story and how things, what you were doing and how things unfolded to where you are
Sure.
now.
Yeah. 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 Well, there's a lot to the journey, but if I were to kind of get to the essence of it, I think since a young age, I've been interested in two things. One is this idea of, figuring out what life is about, and gaining wisdom and insight into how to be the best person that I could be. And that was probably influenced by me being a pastor's kid. Just this really deep curiosity and desire to just be the best person I could possibly be, right? Just, more loving, more compassionate, more hardworking, all these things. And then the second love of my life was filmmaking, which I did ever since a very young age in middle school. And it was such a joyful activity with my friends to frolic around with a camera and make videos and films. And I combine the two of these things, the seeking of life wisdom and substance and filmmaking. And these two, kind of combine together with this mission of utilizing filmmaking to really, change the world and make it a better place and speak to people and empower them, challenge them, and all these things. The only caveat with this mission was I always wanted to feel like I was, you know, utilizing my full potential and I was really doing my best all the time. And as I got older, through college and graduating and doing freelance filmmaking and working at this media company called Jubilee and all these things, there was a certain amount of success as my skills grew. But there was always this feeling of like, I don't feel like I'm fulfilling my full potential. Like there's always something more, something bigger to do. This idea of changing the world. Like, by the time I got to this company called Jubilee, we literally had millions of subscribers and we're getting millions and millions of views. But somehow I was even more anxious than ever because I felt like, at the time it was just like a combination of wanting to change even more people's lives. And
That goalpost keeps
yeah, the
moving on you.
goalpost keeps moving. And also internally, what I felt as time went on was I was really trying to figure out this self-love thing. Like I would hear it, in books and in conversations. I even took this like transformational course that turned out to kind of be a cult thing, all in pursuit of trying to figure out how to love myself. Because no matter what I did, even if it was apparently accomplishing a lot, I just didn't feel like I was fulfilling my full potential. And if I didn't feel like I was fulfilling my potential, I couldn't quite pat myself on the back and say, good job, like you've done really well. It was like there was no end. And the harder I tried, the more I kept feeling this void of, well, I'm trying really hard, but I feel like more anxiety than ever.
And there were other things patting you on the back, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you won some awards, you were
Oh,
successful in
tons.
your
Yeah,
career. Yeah, so you're
totally.
getting the external validation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at the height of the growth, especially at Jubilee, which is now a pretty well-known brand among young people, you know, um, yeah, we have just been nominated for like Influencer of the Year award, you know, around like 2020 maybe is when we hit 5 million subscribers. We had over 1 billion views on all our content, and we had made the world trending list like at least 20 times on YouTube globally, you know. So there was a clear mark we had made on culture, and tons of people were making things that were kind of spin-offs of our content, and huge impact, like really huge. Um, but it's probably in combination with the pandemic when we were all home and not really going out that uh, it's just a really uh, very insecure place that I was in. Um, Also, this tremendous pressure to upkeep this image of success. And anything I did, I felt like I couldn't step out of line, and I had to kind of, I was the guy that had achieved a certain amount of success, so I can't show weakness and things like this. Like I'm the guy that's supposed to be inspiring people with my wisdom and filmmaking talent and things like this, right? So there was the added pressure of this identity that had felt like such a weight. um but the
Yeah,
turning
somewhere like along the lines of success, we lose the permission, I feel like, to also be human. It's like if you're
Yeah,
successful and you've got that image or you've got that look up front, right? It's
yeah,
like, and now you can't be a human being because you can't make mistakes. You can't, show vulnerability. You
yeah,
can't have emotions. You can't have a bad day. And
yeah.
it's like, I don't know why or where that happens, but I see it all the time.
It is so imprisoning, and
Mm.
yeah, so draining, because as you were referencing earlier in our conversation, you can't be yourself anymore. When you're yourself, you're not really, you don't have to really try anything to go out of your way to create some kind of image. But when you're trying not to be yourself to upkeep an image, yeah, I think that was a huge contribution to the burnout for sure.
Yeah.
But it came to a headway, like a breaking point where, you know, I decided to quit my job. Um, and there's other things that happen at the same time, like, and like losing a friend and losing a lot of money and things like that. But eventually, I just got to a point where, like, I had to put up the white flag. Like, I'm too tired. Like, I can't keep doing this. So I went home, not knowing what was next in my life. Had quit my job, left LA, left all my friends. Um, and but
And
there
where's
was
home? Where was home?
Atlanta, Georgia. That's where I grew up. It's more peaceful than kind of the Hollywood environment that I was in at the time.
Yeah.
Um, but in my TED talk, I talk about this turning point that I had when I was sitting on my bed in my childhood bedroom. I'm in that room right now, actually. And I was just sitting on my bed,
Mm.
just kind of just processing like how I had gotten here. Like, I used to be so full of joy in life and passion, and that, like, how did I get here? Like, what happened that I got here? And there was this thought that came into my brain of, like, what is the definition of insanity? Like, that question came to my mind, which I had heard in the past. And then this other quote came to my mind that I read somewhere in the past of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting the same results. And so I felt like I was being asked a question by God or the universe or source, whatever you want to call it. And the question was like, Ian, like, what is the same thing you've been doing over and over and over again, expecting the same results? And I really had to think about it for a couple minutes because it was so vast. The places I had searched, the books I'd read, all these things. And I was trying to find the commonality of what the same thing in all these activities were. But I realized the common thread among everything I was doing was I was trying to change myself. Like I was trying to change myself to become better, to become more accomplished. I was trying to become a more loving person. I was trying to somehow in all these activities, whether it was to be successful or more wise, I was always trying to improve as a human being.
Mm-hmm.
But then it kind of hit me where I realized, like, what if I don't try to improve all the time? Like, what if I don't have to become better, a better version of myself all the time? And it was such a radical idea. It was so simple, but it was so radical because my entire life had been driven by this growth mindset of always, topping the last version of myself. So
I have to tell you right now, just when you
yeah.
said that, what if I didn't try to change anything? Like I'm just head to toe goosebumps. Just, oh, yeah, just head to toe. Yeah.
It was radical for me, like really radical.
It's so powerful.
Yeah. 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 And it took me a while to really understand what that meant. And I'm still understanding today and on that journey. But essentially, the paradigm shift that happened was just, the core message of my TED Talk was coming across this idea of radical self acceptance. All the parts of myself that I didn't like, the anxiety, the self criticism, trying to get rid of these negative thoughts all the time, um, backing out and being like, okay, like what if I can't get rid of this stuff, but it's my job to actually accept this stuff and to like work with it. And so that marked that marked a huge turning point in my life, this huge paradigm shift of willfulness to just tapping into much more flow and becoming more conscious, and a lot of shadow work, like aiming to uproot the darkest parts of myself that I avoid and resist and create space for it without judgment. And I took a sabbatical. I took a whole year off from work because I felt intuitively that I just need to carve out this abundant time and space where I don't have to do anything, where I don't have to create or be productive. I can just be. And it took even a while in that year, but it's probably the most silence and space I had maybe in my life. And gradually, but very surely throughout the year, I think I started to understand what it means to know that my worth is simply from my being and not from doing or achieving. It took a lot to get there. It took a lot of pain, it took a lot of time, and I'm still on that journey, but it's probably been in my adult life the most significant shift in my worldview that has, it's changed everything.
Those of us doing this kind of work, I think we share the common opinion, language, belief that it's so painful to do this kind of work,
Mm.
and it's so worth it.
Mm.
And I guess I would just ask, whatever you're comfortable with, speaking to what you mean by it came with a lot of pain.
Mm. Mm. Well, the first part of it is just that at the darkest parts of my burnout was just dealing with a lot of anxiety, depression, these kind of things. But even during the healing process of the year, some of these programs of associating our worth to doing things or achieving things is so deep that it's almost like this incredibly heavy train that's been going at 1,000 miles an hour. And when you try to stop the momentum of that, it's going to take a lot of time. And so I think for a good 9 months, it was me still dealing with this compulsive pattern of thoughts that was automatic. Like I couldn't really do anything about it. This feeling that I need to be doing something, like I need to be growing a company or doing another project. And underneath that, this terrifying sense of shame that if I don't, I'm not going to be worth anything. And so uprooting, I think the core of that shame is very unpleasant. But like you said, it's the exact illumination and light and consciousness necessary to be with that intimately without judgment, to be able to, I think, discover that new dimension or paradigm of living where you're not running away anymore. And the relief that comes from this feeling of realizing you don't need to run away from the shame anymore is like, it's so freeing, very, very freeing. Yeah. And then there'd be very sobering moments, even these days of kind of beholding how much negativity or programming or baggage is in my brain. It's almost like when you kind of clear your lens a bit and you look at how much baggage you have inside of yourself, it's like, oh my gosh, like I have all of this baggage inside of me. It's very humbling.
Sure is.
Very
And I feel
humbling.
like you come to acceptance, right? And you like, I've had this moment, and I accept that I am dot dot dot.
Yeah.
And then like however long later, a week, a month, you're like, wait, there's more
It's like, damn it.
and
Like,
more and more.
I thought I had done this work, and then get a
Right.
whole
I thought I
new
was
stack in
done.
front of you. Yeah.
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 But it's the constant evolution, right? We don't have to be
Yeah.
afraid of it anymore. You get enough
Yes.
layers, in the work, and you get enough layers in, the healing process, and you start to realize like, okay, here I am again. It's time to get
Yes.
back. I look at it as invitations.
Yes. Yes. Invitations. Yeah, and part of the gift of going through all of this, I realize, is also being able to empathize with people in that mentality that I used to be in. I know what it's like to feel that pain. I know what it's like to feel that anxiety. So I feel like even though it was painful, there was, it gave me this like a certain amount of depth, I think, that it gave my life and my experience in the way I'm able to relate to people. The other humbling thing is that before I perceived life linearly, where it was like I'm going from A to B, and B is where I want to get to. But now it's not as linear. It's not about getting to B. It's a day-to-day discernment and presence. And you're at A, and you're just trying to stay at A as best you can, and be happy where you are, and then see
Yes.
where that takes you, you know?
Yeah.
But it's been humbling because, it's like now it's like, I'm never gonna get to a place where I have the answers, and it's like I don't
Yeah.
know, I don't know where I'm going. Much
Right. Because
more,
there's so
yeah,
much available to us that I think we can't even fathom. But it
yeah,
takes this kind of work to not only have, I always think like the universe opens up for us when we're doing our work, but it's not just in the way of, oh, then all the success is going to come. Although I do see a lot more opportunities, a lot more things come to us when we are taking care of ourselves.
yeah,
But it is also met with that. And I'm grateful right here, right now.
yeah, yeah,
If nothing else comes, I have an amazing life and I'm
yes,
very happy. And I want to go from A to B once I know I'm good with A, but I don't want to get to B if I have to lose myself. For me,
yes,
that's what it's about. I will keep going and I will keep chasing my dreams and I will keep, growing and whatever, but, career wise, but not at the cost of my soul.
mm-hmm,
I won't
mm-hmm,
lose myself again.
yeah,
Fingers crossed. That's the work that I do. I won't lose myself
yeah,
for any amount of money or success
mm,
or, you know, followers, whatever it may be.
mm.
And I think for me, that's the distinction is A has to be present and mindful and intentional.
That's such a good way to put it. Like nothing is worth the cost of your soul, our soul.
Yeah.
Literally nothing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But when you were at the height of your success, how would you describe like how you think people saw you and how, that
Mm.
imposter syndrome that you referenced, like how do you think people would have described you, and then how would you have actually described yourself if you were allowed to be honest in that season?
Hmm. That's a great question. At the height of my success, I mean, I know I was very insecure and nervous, and I do think people felt that to a certain degree. But it's almost like there's these concentric circles in our lives. I think the closest people in my life probably know a little what's going on, and then, maybe my coworkers here and there might sense something, but, I'm in this position of authority, so they probably don't feel safe enough to be able to, give me any good feedback, and I wasn't quite secure enough to even ask for that. And then outside on social media, people's perception was probably, whoa, this guy's got it figured out, or like he's really successful, or, really, I don't know, just at B, I guess, you know? Um, and yeah, and the inside, yeah, just like this, you know, constantly trying to figure myself out, like this constant questioning, like why I can't figure it out, you know? Um, I think for me personally, a very deep, deep, deep preoccupation with what other people thought of me, like my image. Like I wanted to be likable, and that brought up a lot of kind of just repressing parts of my true self and anxiety. Yeah, a lot of anxiety for sure. To me, anxiety is this. Um, it's essentially your consciousness looped back in on itself. It's so preoccupied with its own. Um, it's just this kind of energy that's trapped inside this box, so to speak. A lot of energy when it's supposed to go outwards. Because when you're not anxious, you're connected, you are present, you're there with people. So you're not thinking about how you look or how you're coming across. But at that time, my entire life was folded in on itself, only thinking about myself all the time. Right. Um, and it doesn't feel secure. to be in that space, because one thing you say might make you look bad. Like your whole life becomes a test where you might get an answer wrong, and you're trying to hit 100 out of 100, but that's just impossible to do for any human being.
Right.
Yeah.
I can literally feel the weight of that.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
So much
I
pressure.
stole that quote from a Kanye interview, by the way, where it's like, oh yeah, if
Did
you're
you?
trying to do the right thing the whole time, your whole life becomes a test, right? So it's like, yeah, my whole life was a test, like trying to get it right all the time, right? Yeah, that's what it felt like. Trying to get it right all the time.
Yeah. So I guess that makes me wonder, we focus a lot, in the entertainment industry and the film industry. What do we need to do as a community? Because your experience, your pain, that anxiety is not unique to you. We're all experiencing it, and it's like nobody's talking about it. We're starting to talk about mental health,
Mm.
but imagine had somebody come alongside you and said, "Yeah, me too. Terrified. I feel like I don't measure up. I'm always trying to hit 100 out of 100 and I can't." Like, how do we normalize these conversations? How do we give other people, whenever we have some level of healing or something positive in our life, we want to spare other people from at least a couple layers of the darkness, right? How
Yeah.
do we as a community open up the conversation? Is there something we can do that you've felt, wow, if I'd only had that?
Yeah, I think we discussed it last time a bit, but it instantly came to mind that I think we have to be comfortable talking with about the imperfection of ourselves. And I think, yeah, especially for those of us who've gone through this transition, continually being open about what we're imperfect, like how we're imperfect, our experiences of that pain. Um, Part of the pressure and the feeling of trying to get it right all the time was maintaining the image, right? Like maintaining the image of just the success or the, constant good vibes all the time. um, and our industry is inherently tied with, wanting to maintain a good image, like a good brand, so to speak. But being able to, I think, Shia LaBeouf had a great quote one time where he was like, sincerity and transparency is the new punk rock. And so in the future, I think there's going to be much more kind of like, yeah, people are going to gravitate much more towards people who are just being real, I think, about the fact
Yeah.
that they're a human and able to talk about just things that are not perfect, because that's just literally what it is. Like we're like, there's literally no such thing as perfect.
Right. Right.
Um,
That is one thing I appreciated about the COVID experience of, some, celebrities, if you will, or high profile names where they would get on camera and not be made up and
mm,
without makeup and their hair done and their hair was graying because they hadn't left the house. And I I think that really helped social media to bring down that perfection image.
yeah.
I do find it interesting that now there are a million more filters
Hmm.
that we can use, but I prefer the other way where people just look real and natural. And if you want to, if you want to get made up, that's great. But also, let's see who we really are. And if we could take that physical idea and also bring that to the emotional space, right? Like
Yeah.
now, a lot of people are talking more realistically and more honestly about how hard COVID was for them,
Hmm.
right? I think a lot of people still just wanted to say, yeah, survive that. It was fine. And now I think it's catching up to us and people are realizing like that was more challenging than maybe we even admitted to ourselves at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. The image that came to my brain of kind of human growth is there's this perception that it's linear, kind of this like up and to the right line of human growth. But
Yeah.
My own experience is that there's kind of these cycles of, there's this identity you've created, which is good for a time. And then after a time, it's not useful anymore and it breaks down. And you
Yeah.
feel in limbo and you feel like you're losing yourself. And then you build up another identity that's a little more nuanced, a little more expanded, and fits for this next period of your life. But it's a cycle. I think that will break down too. So it's like, yeah, there's this continual process of, I guess, like shedding ourselves,
Yeah.
losing parts of our identity, and there's a grief to that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want, again, goosebumps. Do you want to say more about that? The grief of, well, I think our initial identity comes from our childhood and our experience, and oftentimes, especially with people with trauma, but I think all of us to some degree, that identity is formed out of survival, right?
Yeah.
Very little underdeveloped brains, nervous systems trying to figure out and stay safe in the world. And we do adapt in ways that help us survive. And much like what you said with human growth, it doesn't serve us anymore, or it starts causing harm.
Yeah.
But when we start to shed those, even those unhealthy parts of ourselves, there's grief. Do you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of times when you shed even an unhealthy part of yourself, it feels like grief because you feel you were so closely attached to that idea as your identity that it feels like you're losing your identity. But in reality, it's just a very deep pattern or attachment that you're losing, and it just temporarily feels like this kind of almost like a shock, I guess, like, oh, like I'm losing this, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, just to make it a little more tangible, like in my own life, I'm trying to think of a specific example of like shedding an old identity. Well, here's an example. Ever since I was in middle school, I was a filmmaker. Like I was doing videos. And I did that probably for, I don't know, like a decade and a half maybe. And so this idea that I was a filmmaker and I was a film guy was so ingrained in me because I've been doing it my whole life. And I was joining this new company where it wasn't going to be film anymore. It was going to be audio, right? And so there was this kind of fear that I might be losing my identity or stepping away from my strengths or whatnot because I'm not doing film anymore. But if you think about it, the core of the storytelling is pretty similar. Like it's the same essence, it's just a different form. But in my brain, I was so attached to this form of being a filmmaker and being known as the filmmaker. I was like, oh, what am I gonna do if like I'm not doing film anymore? All this life I've built is going down the drain, kind of thing. Um, that's a really simple example, I think, of this identity that I'd built up of who I thought I was, uh, just changing shape, just evolving, because all the skills I'd learned up to that time in storytelling through film, it applied just the same to audio, like perfectly,
Sure.
you know. But
Sure.
in my brain, there's a lot of fear though, stepping into this new arena. There was fear of the growth of exploring something new because I was holding on to this this identity I built up to then, which having the filmmaking dream was like a raft boat. It took me this far, and I wanted to explore new territory because I was curious. But once you get to the other side of the river, it's like you don't want to drag the boat with you. It's like, no, just go explore. Like you don't have to take all this stuff that that has taken you so far. You don't have to take it continually until you die. Like you're allowed to shed parts of yourself so you can explore totally new territories. And I think that has so much to do with the inner work too, because once you know that your value comes from just existing as a human being, you're free. Like you can explore whatever you want. Like there's no limit. You can do finance one day and you can do painting the next, and then you can do architecture that it does, like, that's so cool. You can do whatever you want. You shouldn't feel trapped to have to do anything. Like, you're good. I don't have to be a filmmaker. Like, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to do anything. you know that's such a yeah, so much freedom, I think, once you start to not attach your identity to what you do. you know it's such a
Or
huge
to what other
shift.
people think of you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I know many people who've felt that they have to be loyal to their brand of what they've built so far, so they feel they cannot do anything that might displease their audience and things like that. And I think that's something a lot of creators struggle with too.
Yeah, I do
Feeling like they
too.
can't be truly exploring what they want to because of these expectations. Yeah, it goes back to the grabbing versus creating, I think,
Yeah,
where it's yeah, you always want to be coming from a place where you're doing exactly what you want to do and explore exactly what you want to explore, or
yeah,
else you might become beholden to, I don't know, probably other people's expectations and things like this, which is
sure.
probably a slippery slope. you know?
Yeah. So when we talked last, you were on your last day of your sabbatical.
Oh yeah,
What are you up to? How's it going?
it's going amazing, actually. Every day I'll get up and I have this to-do list of things I want to do. And there's, in particular, two projects which I'll kind of keep on the lowdown, but one is a book and one is a film. But I feel very close to these and I really want to make these. It's something I would go out of my way to pay to make, which is how I know it speaks to me. And what I started doing, and this is very recent, actually, just in the past week, I started carving out my mornings to focus just on those and what I want to work on. And then anything like errands or emails or other work that is not directly those projects, I'll do in the afternoon. And the reason I said it that way is because I started to realize there's this part of me that wants to get back to people, that wants to make sure that, I'm looking at this contract so I'll get paid and all that kind of stuff. But I realize if I keep doing this stuff first and I keep doing the work I want to do later in the day, I keep telling myself like, you know, I'm too tired to do this right now or whatnot. I realize I have to make my own work the first priority above all these other errands and things that I seemingly have to do. But like, this is the soul nurturing creation that is just for me. I realize I need to be intentional, as you say. Such a great word. I need to be intentional to make this the first priority and everything else is secondary. So this is the latest iteration in my schedule day to day of what I'm doing. But to answer your question, yeah, it's one is a book of all these compilation of writings I've done about kind of realizations and epiphanies I've had of how to live a peaceful life. And then the second one is a potential documentary about this amazing intentional living community where it's just an amazing case study and example of people that have gotten together to create a lifestyle that is so deeply nourishing of the soul together. And I think we've forgotten how to live in this tribal village together kind of mentality. And I think this film would be a great example for people of like, just, hey, it's possible to live in community today, like a modern day village. Like, let me show you an example of with these people. So those are the two projects. Yeah.
I love that. I have friends, we fantasize about building a village and,
Yes.
having a place where, not only are we serving, but we're also nourishing ourselves and each other first and living in community. And
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing I'm realizing more and more. I think that you cannot truly have a deeply fulfilling, soulful life or it's much harder to do that without community. Like you really need
Mhm.
community, I think. And even this, being able to talk like this and being able to share it with others, I think, um, for people walking the path and doing the work, like connecting with others who are talking about it, it really solidifies, gives you confidence that it's okay, to be able to explore these new things, and there is another way of doing it. Like, yeah, connection is so important. Important.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that this, just grows as a community of sorts, of just where people can share their stories, hear other people's stories, of, just hear each other's stories of going from adversity to joy,
Mm,
authentic joy,
mm,
peace, not hustling for our worth, having that radical self-acceptance, because it really is, in my opinion, it's the only way.
mm.
You cannot shame or condemn yourself into growth or positive change.
Yeah. Oh, that's it. Oh, that's great.
And all the
Yeah.
messages tell us otherwise, but it's not true.
Yeah.
It's like, just work harder. And I think that mentality is just lose yourself a little bit more. And
Yeah.
so it doesn't work. It doesn't work. But radical self acceptance does.
Mm, mm.
It does. I loved, will you share the opening line of your TED Talk? You hooked me right from the beginning.
I think I said, yeah, as soon as I got on stage, today I'm going to talk with you about how I learned, like, how I hate myself and like how I love myself for hating myself or something like that.
Yeah. I can tell you how I've come to love the fact that I hate myself or
Yes.
something.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was great. That was great. It was a
Uh,
really good TED Talk. I hope our listeners will check it out. What would you say, Ian, I mean, you've experienced your own level of darkness, as have I. What would you say to someone who may be listening, whether or not they're a creative, but if they're feeling that darkness, they're questioning what the point of it all is. It's an existential crisis. If they're just sitting there listening, like, well, that's great. I'm glad you're doing well, but I don't even know where to start. What might you say?
the thought that came to my mind is, it's totally okay to be feeling that way. And it probably makes a lot of sense, actually, that you're feeling that way. It's a sign that you're tuned in to this inner compass that is telling you maybe there's a different way of doing things. And the first step maybe is like, yeah, it's like totally okay to feel the way you're feeling. And to be, to 'cause I used to beat myself up all the time, like, why am I being so negative and things like this? But there's a really good reason that those things are coming up, and it's totally okay to be felt. Um, so just like easing any of the pressure of this self judgment of feeling anyway, like it's okay, and it totally makes sense that you feel the way you feel. And then for me in my personal journey, um, I just had this sense that I need to rest. Like I just need space and time. And so for anyone who shares the feeling I had of this inkling that maybe I need some space, maybe I need some time, um, I would be like, yeah, that's a good idea. Like maybe it's worth exploring, whatever that looks like, whether it's like just even 5 minutes of writing down something you're grateful for, or going for a walk, or you know, I don't know many people who've taken a whole year sabbatical, but like I'm so glad I gave myself permission to do that, and I will affirm, 10,000 times, like it's probably the best decision I made in my life. So
Yeah.
there's there's a reason our intuition speaks to us. Um, and I would say it's good to listen to that and be okay
Yeah.
feeling whatever you feel.
Yeah. Well, and I think both of the things that you spoke to, Ien, are, they're in our space. They're in our social media feeds. They're on billboards, like the opposite of what you're saying,
Mhm.
right? When you're saying it's normal to feel that way, it probably makes a lot of sense why you feel that way. It's probably really valid and it's normal and you're human and me too. Whereas everything we see is turn it off, buy something, drink something, inject something,
Yeah.
ingest something,
Yeah.
and it's like, what if we just allowed ourselves to go through all of the human emotions, which are completely normal? We've been
Mm.
conditioned to think if you're having a bad feeling, there's something wrong and we need to turn that off right now. But
Yeah.
as you know, especially as a creative, sometimes those darker spaces is where the truth comes out, where beauty comes from, where, healing comes from. And
Yeah.
I'm just, I just can't help but think of the messages that we're bombarded with that are actually opposite of what we need to hear.
Yeah. We live in a sedating society, I think. Um,
And ironic, right? Because the second thing you spoke about was rest. And we are conditioned, push through, hustle. You can sleep when you're dead. Somebody's outworking you. You're resting and someone else is in the gym. And, all these wild messages like, I'm not enough. It's like, no, just take a nap. You'll be fine.
just take a nap.
Have a snack and a nap. And let's reassess.
That's really good advice. Have a snack, have a nap, and let's reassess. Yeah, that's
Simple.
that's that's a good 3-step process to like just
Right.
have a
Yeah.
snack, take a nap, and
Yeah. And if
reassess.
you can step outside, I always say step outside.
Outside, yeah. Man, any opportunity where one can create space, like mental space, I think can only be a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that is really where it all begins, I think, being able to listen to yourself. Um,
Yeah.
I'm still honing in on my daily kind of routine and how the way I use social media and things like that. But I made a rule for myself: no social media except Sundays. That
Wow.
ex, but then even Sundays, that's my rest day. You know?
Yeah.
So I don't want to be scrolling on social media. So it's a good way to only go on there for exactly what I want. But
Yeah.
my gosh, the wonders it's done for my mental health. And every time I do go on social media now, it's like so icky. It's like, oh my gosh, this thing is like designed to just fog your brain. And I used to live in that fog. You know what I mean? Like I used to live
Right.
there.
Same.
It's kind of
Because
crazy.
the answers were out there somewhere.
Yeah. The answers
So
are
we
out
thought,
there. Gotta find it, gotta improve
yeah,
yourself and find it, right?
yeah.
But
Get that next dopamine hit.
it's just
Yeah.
it's just crazy. Like especially after my sabbatical, like I'm just like on the other side of it, I'm just like, we live in an insane world. Like it is a crazy, like mad world. I'm like, this is not conducive to mental health. The way
Right.
people are living is
Well,
not
and
conducive to mental health.
I'll admit there's a part of me that used to think, with overconsumption of social media or whatnot, even television, um, that think of all the things you could be doing,
Mm,
but like not in a productive way, but like think of all the things you could be doing
mm, mm,
to improve your health or your mental health, because those are the things that have an impact on your kids and your
mm,
siblings and your parents and anybody who's important to your partner, and so not like all the things you could be doing, like, cleaning your sock drawer or starting a new business, but what could you be creating? Even if
mm,
that creating is like a safe home that changes generational trauma.
mm. Oh
These
yeah.
things matter so deeply where we think it's like we started with, we think it's external and it's outside of us, and we have to bring things in to create the space we desire. when in fact it's already in us what we desire. But we have to make that space. We have to be intentional to create what we truly desire and the impact we truly want to have from a place of authenticity.
Such a great word. Intentional. Yeah. Intentional. The other shift that's happened in my brain before and after this paradigm shift, as a lot of times in my previous life, I would be, well, let's see what happens. Like, hopefully this thing does well and it'll lead to the next opportunity, and let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. Now, I'm gonna create what I want, and I'm gonna do it exactly the way I want, and I'm gonna find some way to make it what I want, because if I wait to see what happens, like, I am totally giving my power away to outside forces that I cannot control. And what I can
Yeah.
control is this infinitely amazing imagination and consciousness where I can choose to look at anything through any lens. It's crazy. Like, I just think about how some people are so terrified of public speaking, whereas other people love it and have this performance energy. It's like I can choose to tap into either one. Like, I can choose to be terrified, or I can choose to be stoked and I'm talking to whoever, whatever. So, and I can apply this principle anywhere in my life. I can create whatever I want. And that has been so empowering, because now it's like, well, why would I want to go to point B if I have exactly what I want to create within me, and I can create this amazing point A, this whatever the way I want. Like, I don't want to go anywhere, I
Yeah.
don't want to take this job that's, gonna apparently pay me a lot but lose my soul. Like, why? It doesn't make any sense. It's
Yeah.
crazy though. It's like
And
I
when you're
have no
not
idea.
self-attuned, you keep going, right? You keep going. First, you get to B. You're like, okay, well, that's really not what I thought it was. So let me go. Let me try C,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it just keeps
All the way to
going.
Z.
You get all the way to Z, and then I don't know about you, but when you were at the top of the tree, weren't you just a little pissed? Like, wait a
Yeah.
minute, I did everything they told me to do. This sucks.
It's like, what the
This
hell is
isn't what
this?
I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. It's like someone gives you a giant package and you open it, and inside is just a huge mound of doo-doo. It's like, what is this? What is this? I'd rather make my own presents. I'm gonna give
Right.
myself. I'm gonna make my own presents. Don't
I
stop
don't
taking
want
these presents from these other people.
It's so funny. It's so true.
Uh,
You already kind of mentioned it, but I was going to ask you if you had any, like, what you do to maintain your mental wellness.
mm,
I know you create space for your creativity
mhm.
and you make that your non negotiable, which I love. Is there anything else that you do on a regular basis that's a non negotiable? You mentioned
Mm,
social media limiting. Anything
mm,
else?
mm. Well, I just have a list of things I don't even entertain. So, um, like, I made a list of things that I know if I start touching this, it's just gonna lead down a rabbit hole. So another one is like
Mm,
YouTube. So I also won't
mm,
watch any digital media videos unless it's like for work, or, someone sent me
sure.
something as a reference for something else. But otherwise, I just know I tend to slip down this rabbit hole of YouTube videos. So I won't do that except
Wow.
Sundays if I really want to watch something. It forces me to be very
Sure.
intentional. And some variety of other things as well, like junk food, for example. Um, yeah, social media, um, and then sleep as well. It's like I'm trying to be more intentional about not staying up too late and getting up
Hmm.
at regular hours. So
Hmm.
it's actually very basic and simple if you think about it. Like, these are all very going back to basic things, but
Hmm.
those basic things are kind of the foundation that everything else is built on. So I realize how important it is. But if there's something that, for listeners, if there's something that is like this temptation or the slippery slope, you know, could be social media, could be junk food. It's good to make rules around those, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, very helpful. It's helped me a lot.
Thank you. I have a list on my phone called the damn thing, as in just do the damn thing. Those are my
Oh, I see.
non-negotiable.
I love it.
But they're very simple. It's do your workout,
Yeah.
get your steps, drink your water, and do your morning routine, which is my journaling. And then I have a whole bunch of other things that I kind of play a game with myself. Like, I don't have to do all those because I don't, my slippery slope is I'm going to do all the things, right? And I'm going to be perfect at it. So I only have those 4 non-negotiables. And even I look at those as 85, 90% is consistent.
Love it.
Never perfection. But I have a list of other things that are on there too that, like, I know if I hit the more of those that I hit in a day, the better I feel. So I'm not mad if I don't hit them, but it's just this constant, like, okay, maybe I could, do this, this stretch really makes me feel amazing. I don't have to do it. I'm not broken. I'm not injured. But when I do, it even helps me feel even better. And so I have a list of those. And it might be
That's so
essential
good.
oils or, snuggle the dogs, but that comes naturally anyway. There's never a day I'm not snuggling dogs, but
Man, that's a great. It's almost the opposite of what I have of the mine's like a not don't touch list, and yours is like the damn thing list. That I might steal that and try that out
yeah,
because there are things
yeah,
in my life I know if I do it, it will make me feel better.
yeah,
Like one is like the Wim Hof breathing exercise. It's like I'm lazy, I don't want to do it, but after I do it, I feel so refreshed and so great every time.
right, right,
But before I do it, I'm like, I don't want to do this. But it's like if I put that on the damn list, that'd be great.
yeah,
That'd be so good.
yeah. That's fun.
Yeah.
Well, Ien, thank you so much. I know you have your TED Talk, and I'm just wondering if people want to find you, where else can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Nourish, I guess. Um, it's
At Nourish?
yeah. So the website is nourish.art, and that's kind of the work that my friends and I do. Soul nourishing storytelling. And it's very much aligned, I think, with this new phase of my life of trying to make really healing work for people. And I think it would speak to this audience. Yeah, otherwise, yeah, you can reach out to me on Instagram. Ien the Korean is my handle. IEN the
I
Korean.
like it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Very, very, very happy that you're here. I'm very grateful. I always enjoy talking to you. I look forward to just staying connected and keeping in touch. Um, Probably off of social media.
Yeah. This is
We'll just
this
keep in touch here.
I thank you so much for just these conversations are so important, so healing, and appreciate just just allowing me to share my own experience, which it's crazy. Just by being oneself, we can be of so much help, right? And you're doing the same, and we're doing it together. It's a beautiful thing. So I appreciate you
Yeah.
creating this space intentionally that can be shared with
Thank
other
you.
souls as well.
Well, you are definitely a warrior, and I'm grateful that you're willing to share your story and, just keep doing the work because I think that's what matters most. It's how we make the greatest impact. So
Mm,
thank you again. And I'm glad we met, and I'm glad we get to keep the conversation going.
amen. Likewise, onward and upward.
Thank you.